My parents pitched it like a gift, and I believed them without hesitation. After college, I moved back home because rent in our city was brutal. Greg Sutton sat at the kitchen table, calm and confident, and he laid out the plan. I would pay $2,000 each month, and they would save it for me. Marissa Sutton nodded beside him, smiling like this was loving parenting. They said it would become my down payment, and I would buy a home faster. They said it would teach me discipline and keep me safe from debt. I asked one question: will the account be in my name? Greg said the bank paperwork takes time, but the money would be mine. Marissa said, trust us. We are your parents. We would never take from you. I wanted to believe that sentence more than I wanted proof. So I agreed, and I set up automatic transfers on the first of every month. $2,000 left my account, and I told myself I was building a future. For the first year, it felt almost normal, like adult life with training wheels. I worked a steady job, I paid my share, and I stayed out of their way. Then they started sending me screenshots every few months, like progress reports. The balance climbed, and the numbers looked comforting, even through a phone screen. Greg would say, look at you. You are doing great. You are almost there. Marissa would say, we are proud of you. Keep going. This will change your life. Meanwhile, my brother Cole Sutton floated through life like gravity did not apply. He moved in and out, tried side hustles, then quit them, and still got praised. Greg called him a dreamer, and Marissa called him sensitive. When Cole asked for help, they helped fast, and never called it a lesson. When I asked for clarity, they called me anxious, and told me to stop counting. Years passed that way, and the transfers never paused. I paid $2,000 each month, in summer and winter, through promotions and stress. I skipped trips, and I packed lunches, and I told friends I was saving. Greg and Marissa kept calling it rent, but always with that promise attached. This is for you, they would say. This is your future. By year 6, I should have been close to a real down payment, and I felt proud. I also felt tired, because my life was on hold, and my parents kept moving the goal. That was the first time I wondered, very quietly, what if the account does not exist? The doubt did not arrive as drama. It arrived as one overheard sentence. One Tuesday night, I came home late, and I heard Greg in the den. He was on the phone, voice low, trying to sound confident. He said, do not worry, we will cover the shortfall this month. Then, he said, Brielle rent money is already in our account. My stomach tightened, because he said our, not hers. I paused in the hallway, holding my keys, and listened longer. Greg kept talking about interest, and deadlines, and a payment he missed. He mentioned a business line of credit, and a lender getting impatient. Then he said, Cole needs help with his down payment, and we promised him. The words landed like a slap, because my brother was never promised discipline. I walked into the kitchen on purpose, loud enough to be heard. Greg ended the call fast, and came out smiling. He asked if I wanted leftovers, like nothing happened. Marissa looked up from the sink, and her smile was too bright. I asked how Cole is doing, casual, like small talk. Marissa said he is excited, and he deserves a fresh start. Greg said he is finally getting serious about life, and we should support that. I nodded, but my chest kept tightening, because none of it was new. Cole was always the project. I was always the resource. That night, I opened my banking app and scrolled through 6 years of transfers. The payments were there, steady and brutal, first of every month. I added them quickly, and the total made my throat go dry. I should have had a real down payment by now, and a real account in my name. I asked Greg the next morning, calm and direct, can I see the account statement? Greg laughed softly, like I asked for something childish. He said statements are messy, and you will only stress yourself. Marissa added that they track everything, and the screenshots prove it. I asked whose name is on the account, and Marissa said, do not worry about names. She said, trust the process, and focus on your goals. Greg told me I was acting ungrateful, and he said rent is rent. He said they are doing me a favor by keeping it safe. I stared at him, and I felt the floor shift under my feet. Because safe does not mean hidden, and love does not fear a statement. I stopped asking for reassurance, and I started asking for facts. At work, I opened a fresh folder on my laptop and named it Savings. I downloaded every bank record I could access, month by month. I saved screenshots of every text where Greg and Marissa promised the money was mine. I saved the progress images they sent, with dates and captions about my future. I saved their messages calling it rent, and also calling it my down payment. The pattern mattered, because patterns are harder to deny than feelings. That weekend I tried again, one last polite attempt. I asked Greg to take me to the bank, so we could put the account in my name. Greg said there is no need, and he looked annoyed. Marissa said you were getting dramatic, and she asked if someone put ideas in my head. I said no, I only want transparency. Greg told me transparency is for strangers, and family runs on trust. I asked why my trust needs secrecy, and his face tightened. He said you live here, you eat here, you use water and electricity. He said $2,000 a month is fair rent, and I should stop acting special. Marissa nodded fast, and added that they never promised a house. She said they promised to help me save, and they did. I felt the room tilt, because the story was changing mid-sentence. For years they said the money was mine, and now it was rent. I kept my voice calm, and said then, "Show me the savings account." Greg slammed his hand on the counter, and said enough. Marissa looked wounded, and said you are hurting your father. That was their favorite trick, turn my question into their pain. I did not argue, because arguing is how they stall. I went back to my room, and I wrote down what happened, time and date. That night, I called my Aunt Helen Price, my mother's sister. I asked a simple question, did you ever hear them talk about my savings? Helen went quiet for a beat, then sighed. She said yes, and she sounded uncomfortable. She said she assumed it was handled, and she did not want conflict. I thanked her, and I did not push, not yet. After the call, I stared at my ceiling and made a decision. If they want to treat me like a tenant, then I will act like an adult with paperwork. The real proof came from a moment they did not think I would catch. 2 weeks later, I walked in from errands and heard Marissa in the living room. She was on speakerphone with Helen, voice cheerful and careless. She said Cole closing is next month. Can you believe it? Helen asked how they pulled it off so fast, and Marissa laughed. She said we used Brielle rent savings. It was sitting there anyway. Then she said it will be fine. Brielle has time. She is slow. My hands went numb, and the grocery bag slipped against my leg. I stepped into the hallway, and Marissa froze mid-laugh. She ended the call fast, then smiled at me like nothing happened. I asked what she meant, and my voice sounded too calm. Marissa blinked, then said you misheard, and she walked toward the kitchen. I followed slowly and asked again, what did you mean by my rent savings? Marissa snapped that I always twist things, and she said I should be happy for my brother. Greg came in from the garage, read the tension, and chose his side instantly. He said you are not going to sabotage Cole, not now. I asked where the account is, and Greg said the money was used for family needs. He said it like a confession, but also like permission. I asked if they ever planned to pay it back, and Marissa rolled her eyes. She said you lived here for 6 years, you owe us. Greg added that I should stop acting entitled, because parents do not owe grown children anything. I stared at them and my chest burned, because they had it backward. I was the one funding their promises, and they were calling it my debt. That night, I added a new section to my folder, called admissions. I wrote down every sentence I heard, and every sentence they said to my face. I saved the time-stamped call log that showed Helen and Marissa were speaking. I sent Helen a short message, asking if she heard what was said. She did not reply for hours. Then she wrote one line, I heard it, and I am sorry. I stared at that message, and my hands stopped shaking, because sorry is not repayment, but it is confirmation. And once I had confirmation, I stopped hoping. I started planning. The first step was simple, and it terrified me. I stopped the automatic transfer. On the 1st of the next month, $2,000 stayed in my account. I did not announce it, and I did not argue about it. I waited for them to notice, because they always notice money faster than emotions. Greg noticed by breakfast. He walked into the kitchen holding his phone, face tight, and asked why the payment did not come through. I told him I paused it until I see the savings account statement, and my voice stayed steady. Marissa gasped like I slapped her. Greg raised his voice and said, "Rent is due, and adults pay rent." I told him, "You told me for 6 years it was my down payment, and you used it for Cole." Greg snapped that Cole needed it more. He said Cole is starting a family, and I am single and fine. Marissa added that I am selfish, and she asked what kind of daughter does this. I asked again for the statement, and Greg said there is no statement for me. He said it is their account, and they will manage it. Then he said the sentence that ended the conversation in my head. He said, "If you want to live here, you pay, and you stop asking questions." I nodded once, because I finally understood my role. I was not family, I was a funding source. That night I packed a bag quietly, and I called a friend to crash on her couch. I did not leave a dramatic note. I left a short message on the counter. "I am moving out, and all future communication will be in writing." Marissa called 30 times, then left voicemails that flipped between crying and rage. Greg texted that I was abandoning them, and I owed them. I saved every voicemail, every message, every threat. The next morning, I changed my passwords, updated my mailing address, and opened a new bank account at a different institution. I sent myself a screenshot of the balance because I wanted a record that is real. For years, they fed me fake progress images. Now, I would only trust statements with my name on them. A week after I moved out, I met with Jordan Whitaker, the attorney Helen recommended. He had a quiet office, clean desk, and a patient face. I handed him my folder, and I watched his expression change as he read. He did not react like family drama. He reacted like fraud. He asked how long it lasted, and I said 6 years. He asked the amount each month, and I said $2,000. He did the math quickly, then wrote the number down, $144,000. Seeing it on paper made my throat tighten. Jordan asked what they promised in writing, and I showed him the texts and screenshots. He asked if they ever called it rent in writing, and I showed that too. He nodded and said the mixed language matters, because intent matters. He asked if I have witnesses, and I said Helen heard Marissa admit using my money for Cole. Jordan told me not to call my parents, and not to warn them. He said we will send a demand letter first, with a deadline and a clear amount. He said if they refuse, we file. He explained that courts care about documentation, and I had plenty. He also warned me that families often get cruel when money is threatened. He said, do not meet them alone, and do not argue on the phone. Keep everything in writing, and let the paper speak. I left his office feeling strange, because I was scared, but also lighter. For years I thought I was crazy for doubting them. Now a professional looked at the facts, and called it what it was. Theft, dressed up as parenting. Jordan sent the demand letter by certified mail, and I got the receipt. The letter stated the promises, the payments, and the total. It gave Greg and Marissa a deadline to repay, or propose a payment plan in writing. 2 days after they received it, Marissa showed up at my work parking lot. She waited by my car, eyes red, voice soft, like a different person. She said she is sorry, and she said she did not realize how hurt I was. She said Greg made decisions, and she went along. She said they always planned to repay me. They just needed time. I listened, and I said one thing, put it in writing, with dates. Marissa's face shifted, and the softness disappeared. She said I am ungrateful, and I am threatening the family. She said Cole will suffer, and it will be my fault. She said I will be alone forever if I sue my own parents. I told her I did not sue. I asked for my money back. Marissa stepped closer and said, you owe us for raising you. I said parents do not get invoices for parenting, and she flinched like I cursed. She walked away muttering that Helen poisoned me. That night, Greg called from a blocked number and left a voicemail. He said he will ruin my reputation, and he said no judge will side with a daughter who does not pay rent. I saved it, forwarded it to Jordan, and went to bed with my jaw tight. They did not respond to the demand letter with repayment. They responded with intimidation. That told Jordan everything he needed. He filed the complaint the next morning. Jordan Whitaker filed the complaint and told me to stay quiet. He said people confess when they feel safe, so do not interrupt. Greg and Marissa acted like nothing changed for about 1 week. Then Marissa sent a group message about Thanksgiving dinner, cheerful and loud. She invited relatives, neighbors, and church friends, like a stage was being built. I knew why. She wanted witnesses for their version. She wanted to paint me as unstable and paint them as generous parents. I did not respond in the group chat. I only texted Helen Price privately. I asked if she would be there and if she would tell the truth if needed. Helen wrote back yes, and she sounded tired of secrets. The day before Thanksgiving, Jordan called and said the timing is good. He said if they repeat the promise in front of witnesses, it strengthens the case. He told me to stay calm and to let them speak first. I packed a folder, and I made it neat and brutal. Bank transfers, month by month, first of the month, $2,000. Text messages from Greg, calling it my down payment and promising it was mine. Messages from Marissa sending balance screenshots with captions about my future. Notes from the day Marissa admitted using my money for coal, and Helen heard it. Voicemails from Greg threatening my job and my reputation. I printed everything, labeled everything, and placed it in a plain binder. On Thanksgiving morning, I dressed simply, and I drove to their house alone. The driveway was full, and the smell of turkey drifted out like normal life. Greg opened the door and smiled too wide, like he was hosting a show. Marissa hugged me, stiff and cold, then whispered that we are not doing drama today. I nodded and walked in, because I did not come for drama. I came for the truth, and I brought it in a binder. The dining room table was crowded, about 30 people, laughing and passing plates. Cole arrived late, confident, and kissed Marissa cheek like a king. Greg raised a glass and made a toast about family sticking together. I watched him speak, and I waited for the right moment to ask one question. After dinner plates were cleared, Marissa served pie, and the room softened. Greg leaned back, relaxed, and started bragging about Cole's new house. He said Cole worked hard and finally made it. Someone asked how the down payment happened so fast, and Greg laughed. He said we helped him, because family helps family. My heart beat hard, but my voice stayed steady. I asked Greg about my savings account, the one he promised for 6 years. The room went quiet in a slow wave, like everyone sensed danger. Greg smiled, then looked annoyed, like I broke a rule. He said, "What savings account, Brielle? You paid rent." Marissa nodded fast and said it was always rent, and you lived here as an adult. A few relatives glanced at each other, confused, because they heard the promise before. Greg shrugged and repeated it. Rent is rent, and you should be grateful. That is when I opened the binder on the table. I slid the first page forward. My bank transfers, $2,000 every month for 6 years. I slid the next page. Greg texts calling it my down payment. I slid another page. Marissa screenshots and captions saying this is your future. Greg's face tightened, and Marissa's mouth opened, then closed. Someone at the far end whispered, "Oh my God." Greg tried to laugh it off and said, "You are twisting it. These are old messages." I turned one page and played Greg's voicemail on speaker, threatening to ruin my job. The room froze completely, and even Cole stopped chewing. Marissa hissed that I was humiliating them, and Greg said, "Turn it off." Helen Price stood up, hands shaking, and said, "Stop lying." She said Marissa told me on the phone, You used Brielle money for Cole down payment. Helen looked around the table and said I heard it, and I am done protecting it. Marissa started crying, loud and theatrical, and Greg slammed his palm on the table. He said, you are ruining Thanksgiving, and you are attacking your own parents. I kept my voice low and said you stole $144,000 and called it love. The room erupted into overlapping voices, but the truth stayed in the center, printed and impossible to erase. That night, Greg followed me to the driveway, and his voice changed shape fast. First he begged, then he threatened, then he begged again. He said we can fix this privately, and he said I will destroy the family. Marissa stood on the porch crying, calling my name like I was leaving her in a storm. Cole stayed inside, because Cole always stays inside consequences. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove away without speaking. My hands were shaking, but my mind felt clear for the first time in years. The next morning, Jordan Whitaker called and said, you did well. He said witnesses matter, and admissions matter, and your binder was clean. Greg emailed Jordan that afternoon, offering to pay something back, but only if I dropped the case. Jordan replied with one sentence, repayment does not erase fraud, and court will decide terms. 2 days later, Marissa tried a new tactic. She sent relatives to contact me. One cousin called and asked me to be the bigger person. An aunt texted that parents make mistakes and I should forgive. I replied to no one, because this is not a feelings debate. This is money taken by deceit and documented promises and a pattern of coercion. Greg and Marissa started posting online vague messages about betrayal and ungrateful children. I did not answer publicly, because public arguments feed their hunger. Jordan told me to let the record speak, and the record was already loud. When the first court date arrived, Greg and Marissa showed up looking shocked, like a courtroom is unfair. Jordan presented the transfers, the promises, the screenshots, and Helen's statement. Greg's lawyer tried to call it rent, but Greg's own words said down payment. Marissa tried to cry, but documents do not comfort lies. The judge ordered mediation, then ordered a repayment plan discussion. I walked out of the courthouse breathing deeper than I expected. I did not feel victorious. I felt protected. For 6 years, they treated my future like a piggy bank. Now, a court was watching the bank, and they could not rewrite it anymore. Mediation was scheduled 2 weeks later, and Greg arrived smiling again. Marissa brought tissues, and Cole did not show up at all. Greg's lawyer opened with a soft voice and called it a family misunderstanding. He said the payments were rent, and the screenshots were encouragement. Jordan Whitaker did not flinch. He asked for the account records. Greg's lawyer said the account is private, and Jordan said private is not relevant. Jordan laid out 6 years of transfers and the written promises. He asked where the money went, line by line, month by month. Greg shifted in his chair, and Marissa kept wiping dry cheeks. Then, Greg tried a new tactic, he said. Brielle lived comfortably and should be grateful. Jordan asked one question. Where is the promised savings account statement? Greg had no answer, only irritation and blame. Marissa finally spoke, voice trembling, and said we raised her. She owes us. Jordan replied calmly. Parents do not build children for survival. The mediator asked Greg to propose repayment terms, and Greg offered a small amount. He offered it only if I dropped the case, and signed a silence agreement. Jordan told him no, because truth is not negotiable. Marissa leaned forward and said, Brielle is ruining our reputation. I looked at her and said, you ruined it when you lied for years. The mediator paused, then asked if Greg admits the funds were used for Cole. Greg tried to dodge, then admitted it in a half sentence. He said we used some because Cole needed it more. Jordan wrote it down and asked Greg to repeat it clearly. Greg repeated it, slower, louder, and the mediator heard everything. After that, the room changed. The mediator stopped treating it like conflict and started treating it like repayment. Greg's lawyer asked for time, and Jordan agreed, but only with disclosures. bank statements, business records, and proof of where my money went. Greg looked furious, because paper is the one thing he cannot bully. When mediation ended, Marissa whispered that I will regret this when they are gone. I did not respond, because regret is not a payment plan. The court hearing came faster than I expected, and my stomach felt tight. Jordan Whitaker told me to breathe and let the documents speak. Greg and Marissa arrived early, dressed like church, faces stiff and offended. Cole sat behind them, suddenly interested, because money was threatened. The judge asked one direct question. Did you promise to save this money for betrayal? Greg started with rent again, but Jordan played the texts. Greg's own words said down payment, and future, and your account. Marissa tried to explain the screenshots as motivation, and the judge asked why she sent balances. Marissa paused too long, then said she wanted me to keep paying. The judge did not smile, and the courtroom went quiet. Helen Price testified next, voice shaking but firm. She said Marissa admitted using my money for Cole down payment. Cole stared at the floor and did not deny it. Jordan presented the voicemail threats and the quitclaim style pressure language. Greg's lawyer objected, and the judge allowed it because it showed intent. Then the judge did the math out loud. $2,000 each month for 6 years. $144,000, plus filing costs and interest. Hearing it in a courtroom felt different, heavier, and final. The judge ruled that Greg and Marissa misrepresented the purpose and benefited from the deception. The judge ordered full repayment with a monthly plan and enforcement triggers. If they miss payments, wage garnishment can start and lines can attach. Greg's face went gray, and Marissa started crying for real. Cole whispered something to Marissa, then looked away again. Greg tried to argue, and the judge warned him to stop. When we walked out, Marissa hissed that I destroyed them. Jordan said quietly, "They destroyed trust. You protected yourself." Outside the courthouse, I stood in sunlight and felt my lungs fill. I did not feel joy. I felt relief, because someone official finally saw it. The first payment arrived 30 days later, and it hit my account like proof. It was not a gift. It was court-ordered, and that mattered. Greg and Marissa paid on time at first, then complained through relatives. A cousin texted that I should move on, and I blocked her. Another aunt said parents are human, and I did not answer. I stopped debating morality with people who ignore receipts. Jordan Whitaker set one rule for me: keep everything documented. Every payment, every missed day, every message, saved and dated. Helen Price checked on me weekly and apologized again for staying quiet so long. I told her thank you for speaking up, because it changed everything. Cole never reached out, not once, because accountability is not his language. Greg sent one email saying, "I hope you are happy now," and it was blame dressed as peace. I deleted it, because I am not keeping his guilt in my inbox. I moved into a small apartment with bright windows and a locked mailbox. On the first morning there, I opened a new savings account in my own name. I set up automatic transfers, smaller but real, and I watched the balance grow. No screenshots from anyone, no promises, no hidden accounts, just statements, and my name at the top. The scholarship idea stayed in my mind too, and I began planning it slowly. I wanted one good thing to come out of this, beyond repayment. Some nights I still felt anger, but anger no longer drove me. Boundaries drove me, and paper drove me, and peace drove me. Greg and Marissa can call it betrayal forever, but courts call it repayment. I call it my future, returned to me, one payment at a time. The second month of payments came on time, and I did not celebrate it. It was not kindness, it was compliance, and I kept it that way. Greg sent the payment, then sent a message 5 minutes later. He wrote that he hopes I learned my lesson, and that we can move forward now. Marissa followed with a longer email, full of soft words and sharp blame. She said she forgives me, and she hopes I stop punishing the family. She said Cole is under stress, and I should consider how my actions affect him. I stared at the screen and felt the old pull, the trained guilt. Then I let it pass. I forwarded everything to Jordan Whittaker and asked if I should reply. Jordan told me no, and he was calm. He said you do not negotiate with people who only respect court deadlines. A week later, Helen Price came over with takeout and sat with me at my small table. She said Marissa is calling relatives, building a new story again. Marissa told people I forced them to pay rent twice, and now I am still angry. Helen said she tried to correct it, and Marissa cried and said Helen betrayed her. I told Helen she did not betray anyone. She stopped lying for them. That night I saw Cole post photos of his new house online, smiling on a porch swing. The caption was about hard work and blessings, and it made my stomach turn. I realized my money bought that porch. Then my parents asked me to feel sorry for them. The next morning, Greg showed up at my apartment, uninvited, standing by the mailboxes. He said he just wants to talk, and he looked exhausted. He said the monthly payments are hard, and the business is struggling, and I should consider lowering the amount. I told him the judge set the amount, and I will not change it. Greg said Marissa is not sleeping, and she is devastated, and I should be compassionate. I told him compassion does not erase fraud, and sleep is not repayment. Greg raised his voice and said you lived under our roof, and you owe us respect. I said respect is earned, and you spent 6 years spending mine. Greg stepped closer, and I stepped back, and I said leave now. I said if you do not leave, I will call the police. Greg froze, then walked away, muttering that I am heartless. My hands shook after, but my boundary held, and that mattered. For a while, anger felt like energy, and then it faded into fatigue. I started therapy because I did not want bitterness to own me. In the first session, the counselor asked what I lost besides money. I said I lost time and trust and the feeling of being safe at home. I said I lost 6 years of choices because I planned my life around a lie. She nodded and told me that grief for time is real. She told me to build something small and solid, something nobody can twist. So I did. I made a budget that fits my actual income, and I stuck to it. I set automatic transfers into my own savings account, smaller than before, but honest. I added one rule: no one has access but me. I stopped checking my phone at night, because I do not owe anyone midnight panic. Helen kept checking on me, and sometimes she cried from guilt. I told her the truth. She helped by speaking up, and I need her to stay steady now. Jordan Whittaker reminded me to track every payment, and I did it like a ritual. Each month I logged the date, the amount, and any message attached to it. Greg and Marissa tried to send notes with the payments, little guilt packages. Marissa wrote that family is forever, and I should come home for Sunday dinner. Greg wrote that I am still their daughter, and I should stop acting like a stranger. I did not respond, because they used my responses like fuel. I built new habits instead. I joined a gym, and I walked on a treadmill while listening to calm music. I cooked in my own kitchen, and the food tasted better without fear. I started volunteering once a month, helping young adults with budgeting basics. The first time someone thanked me for clear advice, I felt my chest loosen. It was strange, realizing I can be useful without being exploited. On a quiet Saturday, I opened a separate folder on my computer and named it Scholarship. I wrote one sentence at the top: no one should be trapped by a false promise. It was the first time I turned this mess into purpose. The first missed payment happened in month 4, and my stomach dropped anyway. I checked the date twice, then checked again, because part of me still expects tricks. Jordan Whittaker told me to wait 3 business days, then notify him. On day 3, the payment still did not arrive. Greg sent a text that said we are having a hard month. Be reasonable. Marissa added that I should have mercy, because Cole is struggling. I did not reply, and I did not argue, because arguments are how they delay. I forwarded the messages to Jordan, and Jordan filed the notice the same day. 2 days later, the payment arrived with a smaller amount attached, like they could change the rules by shrinking them. Jordan called me and said, "Do not accept partial payments without documentation. It can create confusion." He handled it, and the court enforced the schedule. Greg called me from a blocked number, voice tight, saying I am destroying them again. I told him one sentence, "This is not personal. It is legal." And I ended the call. The next week, Helen told me Marissa was telling relatives that the court is cruel and that I am cold. I said the court is not cruel, it is structured. I said cold is turning your daughter into a paycheck, then blaming her for noticing. When the next payment arrived on time, I felt calm, not relief, because calm is the goal. I realized something important. I do not need to punish them. The system already does what I could not do alone. It keeps the truth consistent. I kept working, kept saving, kept building my own life. Some nights I still felt rage, but it had less space to live in. Every time I saw my own bank statement, with my name at the top, I felt steadier. They promised me a future, then spent it. Now I am rebuilding that future, one real line at a time. The next month, Cole Sutton finally contacted me, and it was not an apology. He sent a long message that started with "family is going through a lot." He wrote that Greg and Marissa are stressed, and I should stop being so harsh. He wrote that the money was used for the good of the family, and I should be proud to help. He said he did not ask for my rent savings, like that sentence erases a benefit. He also wrote that my Thanksgiving binder embarrassed him, and I should have handled it privately. I read it twice. Then, I felt a strange calm. Cole still believed the world revolves around his comfort. I replied once, and only once, with facts. I wrote that Greg and Marissa promised to save my payments for my down payment. I wrote that they used it without consent, and admitted it. I wrote that the judge ordered repayment, and this is not a debate. I wrote that if Cole wants to defend them, he can pay them back himself. Then I blocked him, because I do not owe him more airtime. That evening, Helen Price called me, voice tight, and said Marissa is crying again. Helen said she told Marissa to stop blaming me, and Marissa screamed that Helen ruined everything. Helen sounded exhausted, and I told her she did the right thing. I told her the truth is heavier than comfort, but it is still the truth. After we hung up, I sat on my couch and realized something new. Cole was never my problem. He was my parents' excuse. They used him to justify every choice and to keep me quiet. Blocking him felt like closing a chapter that never served me. By late spring, I had a rhythm. Work, savings, therapy, and court tracking. I also had a quiet project that made me feel less powerless. The Natalie Sutton Scholarship became real, small but structured. I filed the paperwork, opened a separate account, and asked Jordan Whitaker to review the setup. I made the rules simple and practical. It would help young adults cover licensing exams, security deposits, and first month rent. It would support people who were promised help, then left behind. I did not name my parents, and I did not tell my story in the application. I only asked applicants to describe a barrier and a plan. Helen offered to help review submissions, and I agreed, because she knows what silence costs. The first winner was a woman named Kayla James, who needed a deposit for a safer apartment. She wrote that her family took her savings and called it rent. I stared at that sentence and felt my chest tighten, then soften. I wrote her a short note, "Keep going. You deserve stability." When I transferred the funds, the confirmation email felt like a clean breath. Greg and Marissa tried to treat the court payments like reconciliation, but they are not. What heals me is building something they could not corrupt. Each time the scholarship account grows, I feel like I am reclaiming time. It is not revenge, it is repair, but the repair is for me, not for them. The next Thanksgiving came with no invitations, and I liked it that way. I cooked for myself, and I invited Helen Price and 2 friends from work. We ate turkey, laughed at nothing, and played a board game after dessert. There was no yelling, no guilt, and no pretending. Helen brought a small pie, and she looked relieved to be in a room that was honest. Halfway through the evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Marissa. She wrote that she misses me and asked if I will come home. She wrote that family should not be broken over money. I stared at the screen and felt the old anger twitch. Then I set the phone down, and I did not reply. Money was not what broke the family. Deceit did. Later that night, Greg emailed Jordan Whitaker again, asking to renegotiate the monthly plan. Jordan replied professionally, and the plan stayed. In therapy, my counselor asked what my boundary is now. I said my boundary is simple. I do not live inside lies anymore. I do not accept fake apologies attached to payments. I do not sit at a table where my reality gets mocked. If Greg and Marissa ever want a relationship, it starts with truth, and it lasts through consistency. Until then, I keep my life quiet, structured, and safe. The older version of me would have tried to fix them. This version of me builds a future and lets them sit with their choices. By the time the 20th payment cycle came around, I stopped waiting for them to become different. Greg Sutton still tried to attach guilt to every transfer, and Marissa Sutton still tried to call it forgiveness. The court did not care about their tone. It cared about the schedule. When they paid on time, I logged it and moved on. When they paid late, Jordan Whitaker filed notice, and the system corrected it. I learned that consistency is safer than hope, and paper is safer than promises. Cole Sutton faded out of my life because he could not live where accountability exists. Helen Price stayed, and that mattered more than blood. She came to my apartment with groceries and honesty, and she never asked me to shrink again. The scholarship account grew slowly, and every month I transferred a little more into it. Not because I wanted to prove a point, but because I wanted to rebuild something clean. The first time a recipient wrote back, saying she kept her apartment because of the deposit, I cried in my kitchen, quietly, and without shame. That cry was not grief, it was relief. Greg and Marissa used to say they were saving my future, and they said it with smiles. Now, my future is saved in an account with my name on it, and my name is the only password. I stopped explaining to relatives who prefer comfort over receipts. I stopped answering messages that start with "be the bigger person," because I already was for 6 years. I stopped attending dinners where my reality gets laughed at, because laughter is not love. 1 year after that Thanksgiving table, I drove past my parents' house once and kept going. I did not feel anger. I felt distance, and distance felt like peace. If they ever want a relationship, it starts with a full truth, spoken without excuses, and it lasts through years of changed behavior. Until then, they can keep their story, and I will keep my life. They promised to save me, and instead they spent me. I took myself back. One document, one boundary, one real statement at a time.